Open Heart Society is our music today, and we're here now with Donald Currie.
Currie.
That's almost twice I said that. Donald Currie, hypnotherapist, and great to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, boy, we were having a great conversation just before we came on. But,
we were.
But tell us how you got into this. First of all, what's your story? How did you come to be a hypnotherapist?
So I was hypnotized 10 years ago, and it was so powerful. The moment I opened my eyes after the session, I said to the hypnotherapist, I said, this is what I want to do for a living, because it was so profound and it was so moving and so powerful. And the change that I experienced was phenomenal.
Okay. So
for me, it was a tool that enabled me to process those emotions. Going through my process of an intake, getting information, I get a really good sense whether hypnosis is going to work for someone or not. And I do turn people away. I've had, husbands bring their wives in saying, oh, I want her to stop smoking or lose weight. I won't work with.
because it's got to come from the actual person themselves.
That's right.
What are some of the other factors that tend to indicate somebody that it's not?
Let's say you were to interview Hugh right now.
Well, number one, you have to be ready for the change, right? You have to be totally and completely ready, willing, and committed to making the change. You have to have the ability to focus. People who have a lack of ability to focus, or people with ADD, it can be a little bit more difficult to put them through the process of hypnosis. It's not impossible, but it can play a factor in hypnotizing someone. But as long as someone is 100% willing and ready to make change, hypnosis is a wonderful tool to use. Yeah.
What would you say some of your greatest successes have been, Donald? It must feel wonderful to...
Yes, it does. And, every day it's so funny because I've been practicing for 10 years now, and I get people out of the woodwork, that I've worked with 5 years ago, who will come back and they'll say, and they will have accomplished everything that we worked on. I have musicians that I've worked with who come back and they finally got that album recorded, and they finally got signed to a label. I've had people who have had insomnia for their whole life who've finally been able to sleep. So I get these messages from people sometimes out of the blue, and I consider each one of those a success, each one of those stories.
And how many sessions, let's say, with the insomnia?
Insomnia can be as little as 2 or 3, and it can be as much as 5, depending on the issue. Sometimes it can be an issue of safety in the subconscious. If someone grew up in an environment that was not safe, the patterning starts for insomnia because they're always on alert. Mothers, when they give birth to a child, they can always be on alert listening for the baby crying at night. So that can affect the circadian rhythms of sleep as well. So with something like insomnia, it's learning and understanding what's happening within the subconscious that is preventing someone to sleep.
And what would you say, do you get a lot of people who want to lose weight?
Weight loss is pretty big with hypnosis as well. And with weight loss, it is all about understanding the reason why people are eating, right? Whether it's night eating or portion control, if it's emotional-based eating, whether someone's eating for comfort. Those are all things that can be worked on.
So do people sometimes enter into a real journey with, ostensibly, initially they think, oh, I just want to lose some weight, get some hypnosis, might help, and then they end up finding out all these other wonderful things about who they are and self-knowledge and...
It always starts, with one thing, the presenting problem that someone's coming in with, and then it usually branches off into other things. And sometimes people choose to work with me for a longer period of time to tackle other issues when they start to see results, right? So
You're a Reiki practitioner as well.
Yes, I do Reiki. I do it when needed and necessary, because sometimes people need the hands-on work, because that can be very healing for people as well. Yes, 80% of what we did today, we did yesterday. And hypnosis is that same state as when you're driving a car. Do you drive?
Yes.
Or ride the streetcar? Or?
Do you know when you're driving your car and all of a sudden your brain is off doing other things and drifting and wandering, but the car is driving itself? That's hypnosis. When we watch a movie and we get sucked into the the movie and we start feeling the emotions of the movie. That's another state of hypnosis. So because hypnosis is something that feels so familiar, sometimes when people are hypnotized, they don't even know that they were.
Well, maybe people,
hypnotized.
did you think you...
And I've seen post-hypnotic suggestions,
Yes.
too, that were,
Yeah.
the person was now out of the trance,
Yes.
and yet they were being affected by that
My
post-hypnotic.
Post-hypnotic suggestion that I got the first time when I was hypnotized still works to this day. So that's how powerful a properly installed post-hypnotic suggestion can
And
be.
you know, I must...
And the subconscious, when you think about it, it's in charge of everything that is outside of our conscious awareness, right?
Which is a lot.
Which is a lot. I mean, your heartbeat, your blinking, your breathing. I mean, if we had to consciously think about all of those things, it would drive us absolutely crazy. Oh, my heartbeat. Oh, my breathing, blinking, right? So,
That's why most of us are overwhelmed with modern day life.
Exactly.
It is driving us absolutely crazy.
And
trying to
all of
think
our
about it.
patterns, from brushing our teeth to combing our hair to taking a shower to, you know, all of that stuff is also subconscious to all of our emotions. So, you know, this is where people try to make a change, and they might do really, really well for a while, right? They might do well, you know, everybody goes to the gym for those 2 weeks, they get their membership, and they go for 2 weeks, and then one day comes where they go, I think I'm going to skip it tonight, and then they go and get ice cream.
2 years later.
2 years later, they're still not going to the gym, and that's because all of that old patterning around not going to the gym is still in the subconscious mind. So when we use something like hypnosis, we're able to install those patterns.
As we all know about the placebo effect,
That's right.
right? Which
Yep.
apparently works in a third of all cases involving
That's right.
medication.
Hello,
Now,
hello,
with
hello.
hypnosis, it's actually, the success rate is actually higher than the placebo effect, so we know that something is slightly going on different. Interestingly enough, there's also something called the nocebo effect now. I don't know if you've heard
I
of it.
just heard about that like
Did you hear
yesterday.
about that?
Yeah.
The nocebo effect is when people don't think their medication isn't working, and then it stops working because it's the nocebo effect.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, for example, I mean that seems to open up new vistas for hypnosis, like
That is
dealing.
beneficial. I've actually been called in by some families who've had people in hospitals, whether that's, you know, people who are experiencing cancer and people who are in discomfort. And I've had families call me in so that I could actually go and do a house call, and the doctors are like, hey, anything that you can do to support them on their journey. And if anything, it has taught them some tools to better manage the discomfort, right? Because even with their medication, they were still in discomfort. So
And what about age regression? What about somebody that knows, you know what, I know in my family of origin I had this trauma, I'm well aware of it, I can give you a whole litany on my conscious comprehension of my
Yes.
journey and my life and my obstacles, and I know where I want to go and I know where I'm stuck. And having said that, I just want to really honor that we do get stuck, and
Right.
we all experience resistance. We all experience that wall of tension and discomfort, and we know where we want to go, and it's like a big barrier. What do you do in those cases?
Well, in those cases, what I usually do is have the person, first of all, tell me about what they consciously remember, right, from the experience. And then using age regression, we go back and we start to reframe those memories in different ways. So looking at it from the adult eyes with all of the knowledge and wisdom that is available from the 30 or 50-year-old self, right? Because when we experience something at being 5 years old, we experience it at being 5 years old, at that consciousness, right? And that memory is stored at that consciousness. It doesn't progress in the subconscious mind unless we go back and we really look at it, dismantle it, and sort of reframe it and reassemble the memory in a new way.
And bring it up to speed.
That's
because
right.
Dr. Jean Houston's done a lot of work with that we really do have different parts of us that are like the inner child at different ages. It's almost as though these are actual little beings within us. And so in
Yes.
hypnotherapy, you can dialogue with these different
Yes.
parts of self and do parts negotiation.
Yeah, and we also do healing the inner child, right? Working with the younger self, loving and nurturing it in the ways that maybe it didn't get at that time, right? And that can be a profoundly moving experience for most people when they start to reconnect to themselves. Smoking cessation, to find out why they started smoking. Most people start in their teenage years with smoking, and usually it's the rebellious phase, right?
Right.
So tribal sort of rebellious phase.
So there's smoke.